Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm watching Why Harambe's Death Was the Right Choice for the Wrong Reasons by Casual Geographic. I don't know too much about Harambe's death and the circumstances. This happened in 2016, and back then I was only 11 years old, so I was really too young to know much about it. So let's see exactly what happened.
If you want to inflict emotional damage on a millennial, remind them that the Harambe kid either is or is about to be a teenager. In a couple of months, it'll be a year short of a decade since the gorilla was prematurely perp-walked off the census. And despite being named after a Swahili term for coming together, Harambe's death has been no less divisive. But the closer you get to the full story, with crucial context, the question becomes less of whether the zoo was right for turning the legacy of Bob Marley into a hashtag, and more of everything that went wrong to force the zoo to pull the trigger. Because Harambe's death was the right choice for the wrong reasons.
The thing that I find the most weird about Harambe is how it became such a big thing, such a meme. Because, yeah, he got killed. Just get over it. It just doesn't seem like a big deal to me.
Now hear me out, I'm not blaming the gorilla, in fact quite the opposite. Literally everyone involved but the gorilla ultimately failed him, and in about 10 minutes I'm gonna show you just how horrendous Harambe got done. The same 10 minutes it took for them to end him. Flashback to 2016. Eggs were $1.68, a light skin and Under Armours was no-scoping entire teams, and Kanye was still Kanye.
Yeah.
When he made graduation, all was good until a 3-year-old canon event changed.
He
the
has
course
not
of
changed.
mankind. On May 28, 2016, a mother took 4 children to the Cincinnati Zoo and got to the gorilla world habitat when the youngest boy said he wanted to go swimming with the gorillas. She went back and forth with him and then turned around to start putting kids in strollers when she heard a splash followed by immediate screaming. Like any other human,
if your little kid says he wants to swim with a gorilla, do not take your eyes off of him, because he's an idiot and he is gonna get in there.
she went to the railing, and that's when her mind took an indelible screenshot when she realized,
Cincinnati 911.
Hi, my son fell in the zoo exhibit at the gorillas. There's a male gorilla standing over him. I need someone to contact the zoo, please. He's dragging my son. I can't watch this. I can't.
in an unfortunate case of free will, the 3-year-old climbed the 3-foot fence, army crawled through 4 feet of bush, and before anyone could grab him and save the timeline, he fell 15 feet straight into the gorilla moat, where he was confronted by 450.
Wait. You're telling me this kid managed to climb a 3-foot fence and then crawl through 4 feet of bushes without anybody noticing him? Like, let's just ignore the fact that the mother didn't pay attention. Was there nobody else there? If I saw a kid trying to climb over the fence to go into an exhibit of an animal that could easily kill him, I would go in there and stop him. I wouldn't let him climb that fence or get over it. Hell no. So I'm assuming that either nobody saw him or the people did see him and they're just idiots. The first thing that should come to your mind when you see a kid about to climb into an enclosure of a wild animal is stop him. Don't let him do that.
50 pounds of adult primate. Harambe didn't seem especially aggressive, but watching him ragdoll the toddler likely took years off his mother's life. No one could say what was going through the gorilla's mind at the time, but we know what went last, because at about 4:10 p.m., about 10 minutes after the boy fell in, a member of the Cincinnati Zoo Dangerous Animal Response Team life-retired Harambe with a bullet to the head.
You know, he doesn't necessarily seem aggressive towards the kid, but I wouldn't want to risk it because there's water there, you know? And with how he was dragging the kid around, there is a chance that he might knock the kid out and then the kid's gonna drown. So, yeah, I wouldn't risk it.
And life as we knew it was never the same. The slain simian was mourned by millions and memed by even more, to the point where there are people who use their right to vote on the corpse of a Kennedy gorilla, and that is the most political statement that will ever come out of this channel. But before we can judge what had to be an impossible decision, it's only fair to look at every angle, starting with the nature of gorillas. Gorillas aren't the menaces to society.
I wouldn't really say it was an impossible decision.
Male gorillas are way more
It was pretty
child-friendly
easy.
than the average
Shoot 'em or
orang
don't.
and chimpanzee. It's been said that the males that babysit more are considered more attractive to a tribe of hairy women. That's how they got their name.
And shooting him
being good
was
with kids
the-
is more of a turn-on than size, strength, or status.
There was
It's
less risk
proven
if he
that
was
guy
dead.
gorillas on daycare duty will have
I'm
5
just gonna
times
say
as
it.
many children as those that avoid it, which is probably why they fight so hard for custody. You've never seen a gorilla hit the burners like that. But gorillas don't need Maury, they'll even step up for children that aren't theirs. A couple years back, the alpha gorilla of a group in Rwanda got sick, and since in sickness and in health is a human construct, the 4 gorillas of the group left, abandoning not just their baby daddy, but their progeny as well. With the infants barely old enough to feed themselves, it should have been curtains.
That's
This
messed up.
story had a plot twist. The sick male had a brother, Kubaha, and Unk stepped up and looked after them. They'd sleep in his nest, treat him like a literal jungle gym, and he single-handedly kept the next generation up. And Kubaha wasn't an anomaly. In 53 years of gorilla research, it's proven that orphan mountain gorillas that lose their mothers early on don't have a greater risk of becoming a statistic because the males will often step in. Not only did a different study show the exact opposite happens to baby chimps, monkeys, and baboons that get the Bambi treatment, even if they do survive, they inherit zero social rank and virtually no chance at having children. It's the same story for animals like elephants, orcas, and hyenas. Being motherless is social cyanide, but not gorillas. Having one mom short of a full house, oof, has zero effect on their social status, and it's believed that since mama gorillas often dip out before their babies mature, the males have evolved to cushion the blow. Plus, with chimpanzees murking monkeys, bush babies, that's a bush baby, and even doikers for food, and even the good vibes tree hippie known to turn lorises into lunch meat, gorillas pretty much being knuckle-walking lawnmowers probably doesn't hurt Harambe's case. Gorillas go out of their way to avoid conflict, and you really won't see them beating on something weaker than they are, unless they did something to deserve it. But there's always a but. The rules of nature often change when you're talking about captivity. A wild orca has apparently never depulsed a person, but those confined to a glorified fishbowl have a body count. Pandas normally mate, date, and procreate no less than the average black bear, but those in captivity often get less play than Helen Keller's Spotify. In captivity, mother gorillas will often reject their own babies.
Another reason why I can see why they shot Harambe is because we're talking about a little kid here. What if he it's a little kid. What if he accidentally does something to agitate the gorilla? What then? I guess that's not even just kids. An adult, a fully grown adult, could accidentally do something that agitates the gorilla. So yeah, I don't know.
And it happens a lot more than you would think, so maybe the parental instinct doesn't apply as much to a gorilla behind the glass. Yeah, no, because if I had a nickel for every time someone's son ended up in a gorilla enclosure, I'd already have 2 nickels by the time player number 3 decided to keep the tradition alive and airdrop himself to the gorilla grotto. On August 16th, 1996, another 3-year-old fell nearly 24 feet into the Brookfield Zoo gorilla exhibit. In a scene you've definitely seen before, 8-year-old Binti Draw climbed down to the boy, cradled him in her gorilla arms for nearly 60 feet, and gently placed him at the employee entrance where officials could get him. But what you might not know was that Binti was one of those gorillas rejected by her mother and was hand-raised by humans. Part of this raising meant...
Well, that's a different scenario now. This gorilla was raised by humans, so you can't really compare the two.
Her caretakers had to train her to be a mother once she became pregnant with the same baby riding shotgun while she rescued the boy. Part of this training included handing off her baby to staff for checkups, so there was low-key an argument as to whether this was an actual gorilla guardian angel or just an animal doing what it had been trained. Well,
probably the second one.
Earlier in 1986, 5-year-old Levin Merritt followed the same script, falling into the gorilla pit and knocking himself
What is it with so many kids falling into gorilla enclosures?
All the way out. And 25-year-old Yumbo stood protectively over the boy, gatekeeping any other gorilla from him, and when the child regained consciousness and cried out, instead of matching his energy, the silverback calmly led his family to a small hut on the other side of the enclosure. But unlike Binti, Yumbo wasn't human-raised or trained in child care. This was actual gorilla free will that looked after the injured kid. So now you might be confused, because if you were on the fence on the Harambe happening, hearing about their social psychology and the gorilla history lesson would have surely kicked you onto the Harambe side. Well,
no,
every gorilla's different,
not necessarily.
so let's talk about the story of Harambe. You know, before he became a hashtag. Harambe was born in the Gladys Porter Zoo in Brownsville, Texas, May 27th, 1999, meaning he had just turned 17 when he got sniped. Just like Binti, he was also rejected by his mother Kayla when he was only 3 weeks old. So, zoo director Jerry Stone hand-raised Harambe, taking him home. The tiny gorilla was by all means his family. Jerry was actually the one to help Harambe's grandparents settle in after they arrived from Africa, and he was even there at Harambe's birth, cutting the umbilical cord. He changed diapers, got up at midnight to feed him. Nobody had put in more Harambe hours than Jerry. Jerry described him as a lovable troublemaker. He'd do things like throw water at female keepers and run away. He'd steal blankets just to give keepers an excuse to chase him. He'd even climb walls to get his keepers' attention just so he could fall backwards and make them catch him. By every account, Harambe meant well, but there was a point where Jerry stopped getting in the cage with him. Not because he was aggressive, but as he got bigger and stronger, there was a legitimate chance he could accidentally roughhouse Stone into eternal submission. But Jerry also noted that Harambe always looked after his siblings, fully embracing the big brother role. But on January 6th, 2002, before Harambe was even 3, someone left chlorine cleaning tablets way too close to a space heater, causing a leak of toxic chlorine gas that suffocated the gorillas. Zookeepers immediately called EMTs, and by administering oxygen, they were able to revive 8 of the gorillas. But there were 3 that never woke up: Harambe's mother, brother, and sister. Yeah, Harambe got hoed by humanity long before Cincinnati. Speaking of which, almost 10 years later in 2014, Harambe was now 15, and time came for him to be relocated to hopefully start his own troupe. Jerry actually pushed for Harambe to be sent to Cincinnati, that way he could contribute to their breeding program, and in September, the gorilla named after a Bob Marley song was transferred to the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden, and less than 2 years later, he would exist only as a statue. So there, now you have more background information than 90% of anyone who's given their opinion. Everything so far points against Harambe being a threat to the toddler, yet experts like Jane Goodall, Jack Hanna, and primatologist Franz de Waal all seem to agree the zoo made the right choice. And I'm with them. Harambe had to die. But why? Basically, it was the best of a bad situation. A lot of people say tranquilizers, but tranks don't work the same way they do on TV.
Yeah, I mean, if you shot him with a tranquilizer, first of all, 1 probably won't be enough. Second of all, those things do take some time to take effect. They're not immediate. And point number 3, if you do shoot him with a tranquilizer, it's not going to put him down immediately, which basically means he's going to be agitated while still in the cage with a 3-year-old child. So he might take his anger out on the kid, even accidentally. So the tranquilizer is just a stupid decision, not worth taking.
It can take 10 minutes to take effect, even longer when the animals turned up. There was a story of 2 polar bears wandering too close to town in Churchill, Manitoba, and the first bear was slept and put in polar bear jail. Yes, but the second bear had no reaction. First bear was slept and put in polar bear jail. Yes, but the second bear had no reaction to the same trank. If anything, it probably made him mad. But the real reason tranquilizing wasn't an option. This is Cha-Cha, Cha-Cha the chimp. Cha-Cha went full Caesar and escaped the Yagiyama Zoo in Japan, and I want you to see what happened the moment he got darted. That man was a second away from becoming an Instagram reel. Animals don't understand the concept of anesthesia, but they do understand getting shot in the back, and in those 10 minutes to take effect, Harambe could have been the most dangerous gorilla outside of Hollywood. The next option would have been trying to have a keeper rescue the kid while distracting Harambe, but here's the thing. The moment the kid fell in, zoo officials signaled for all the gorillas to come inside. The 2 females complied, but Harambe, he was also using free will. Clearly he wasn't in the mood to cooperate. The last argument is that Harambe was
Well, if he wasn't cooperating, that's already a really bad sign. Let's say you do tranquilize him. He goes mad, and let's say he doesn't take his anger out on the kid, but he goes into just a rage and starts swinging blindly. Hits the kid falls into the water and drowns, or he hits it so hard he kills it. Yeah, no. To me, killing him seems like the best choice.
Wasn't hurting the kid. In fact, it looks like he was protecting him. I actually agree. I think the father instinct was doing a lot of heavy lifting, but here's the thing. Harambe was a 450-pound immature teenager who never had a kid or was trained for it. He could have killed that kid completely by accident. This isn't 25
like I said earlier.
Young gorillas play rough, and 1 hard pull could rip his arm out of the socket, and too hard of a drag could bash the 3-year-old's head against a rock. Also, Harambe was clearly stressed out. The situation was a time bomb. The little boy freaking out and screaming, suddenly running away, or even just looking Harambe in the eye could have been enough to light the fuse. And speaking of time, don't forget, that kid was in gorilla custody for 10 minutes. Might not seem like much to you, but let it be your bloodline. 10 minutes will feel like and cost you 10 years. Now, what they should have done, in my non-professional online opinion, was get anyone who wasn't a keeper, paramedic, or zoo vet, get him out of there, form a perimeter, something. I feel like all this could have been avoided.
I'm assuming there was a crowd gathering to watch the spectacle. All those people probably only helped to stress out the gorilla even more. And if they were like screaming, yelling, talking loudly, that's only gonna make the situation even worse. If I was a keeper, I would not get in there. I'm sorry, but I'm not risking my life against a 450-pound gorilla who could go into a blind rage at any moment. I'm not doing that.
If you didn't have a whole coliseum yelling at my mans. Silent game would have been golden, but at that point it was too late for all that, and so the last option meant erasing an endangered species and future father. I don't like it, you don't like it, nobody's happy, but let's be real. Think about what the conversation would be if that kid became a chalk outline right there. Well, I can tell you, because it's happened. November 4th, 2012, Pittsburgh Zoo.
Okay, before he gets into that, if that kid had actually died, people online would have been screaming at the people in the zoo, why didn't you kill the gorilla faster? But because that didn't happen, they're screaming, why did you kill the gorilla?
Mother lifts her 2-year-old over the railing for a better view. Mother ignores several warnings and signs. Mother somehow lets child slip, and Maddox Durkosh fell, bounced off a safety net meant only for phones and cameras, and touches earth inside the enclosure. Problem was, the toddler landed with the African.
Wait, they have actual safety nets for phones and cameras? How do people drop that?
Wild dogs, the most efficient pack hunters in Africa, the ones infamous for turning body to buffet before it can pass away. Look, I can spare you the details, just know it was dead. Quick, it was gruesome, and there was nothing anyone could do. The Durkoshes would file a wrongful death lawsuit against the zoo, seeking $300,000 because you can't put a price on life, but you can pay a lawyer to try. The family and the zoo would reach a confidential settlement. The endangered dogs were all relocated, except for the one shot by cops, and the entire exhibit was repurposed for another endangered African predator, the cheetah. You know, for the longest I thought the zoo got screwed, but what I never knew was that in May of the same year, some of the same wild dogs dug out of their den and got the entire zoo put on lockdown. And as early as 2007, a member of the zoo safety committee explicitly warned of guests dangling children over the exhibit opening and advised them to
Why would anybody dangle their child over an exhibit? What goes through these people's heads? That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Not only are you dangling your kid over an exhibit of a wild animal, you're doing it over the exhibit of a wild animal, which can very easily kill that kid.
Install plexiglass to cover it, but no changes were made until the kid got eviscerated 5 years later. Now, don't think I'm letting the mom off. But no changes were made until a kid got eviscerated 5 years later. Now, don't think I'm letting the mom off. I got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, she's an idiot.
But the zoo was liable and negligent, and it cost them and the dogs. Even though common sense would have saved the day. But common sense would have been a godsend on Christmas Day 2007, San Francisco Zoo. Look, we've all heard the story of Tatiana, the venge-lusting tiger, so here's what we know. 3 guys, 17-year-old Carlos Sousa Jr. and the 19 and 23-year-old Dhaliwal brothers taunted a Siberian tiger. Pine cones and sticks were likely thrown at the tiger. The brothers' father admitted that the boys were drunk. Tatiana escaped, murked Sousa, and mauled the brothers until she was eventually shot by cops. And the Dhaliwal family settled a suit against the zoo for $900,000.
Wait. They're suing the zoo? I hope they lost, because this is a clear example of fuck around, find out. They fucked around and they found out. And now they want to cry about it and sue the zoo? You were drunk, you threw shit at the tiger, pissing it off on purpose, and now you want to cry when one of you dies and the other 2 get mauled? No sympathy. I had sympathy earlier, but none. None now. Absolutely none.
The Sousa family settled a wrongful death suit for an undisclosed amount. And both brothers would use their second chance at life to get into several run-ins with the law, one including a drunken fight with police, and the younger brother would pass away in 2012 due to unknown causes. By every metric, they fucked around and found out, and the 2 that lived came up almost $1 million off it. But 2 things can be true. The zoo screwed up bad because days after the attack, they said the moat Tatiana had escaped from was at least 20 feet tall. Turns out it was 12 and a half. A full 4 feet lower than federal safety standards. And if you know tigers, that is one fuck of an oopsie. But also, after killing
Yeah, the zoo fucked up, but it's still the fault of the 3 fuckheads.
Sousa, Tatiana tracked the brothers down, but because cafe employees refused to let the 2 in, the Siberian Fury pulled up outside the cafe and mauled them again. It took 6 full minutes for zoo employees to realize that the brothers weren't drunk idiots screaming. They were drunk idiots screaming, but not lying about a tiger John Wicking them. And because the zoo was under a Code 1 lockdown, it took another 5 minutes for zoo security to let police and fire units in. Those extra 10 minutes mean a lot when you're actively getting turned out by a tiger, and it probably would have saved Sousa's life. 2 things can be true.
I'll be honest, I don't care
Dim and Dumbass pissed off an apex predator and earned themselves a nomination for a dark.
This is not a little kid who is dumb because they're a little kid. This is a almost fully grown adult. I think it said he was 17, who is just an idiot and doing stupid shit. This is fully on him. You want to mess around with a tiger? Piss it off? You better be ready to suffer the consequences.
Darwin Award while getting an endangered species past tense in the process. But the zoo was also painfully negligent in every aspect, especially since just a year before, keeper Lori Cummigan was mauled by the same tiger while feeding her through the enclosure's grill, and Tatiana's temper tore the skin off her arm, resulting in several surgeries, skin grafts, and California OSHA fining the zoo for safety violations. Lori would also sue and would also settle for an undisclosed amount. And after Tatiana's final act, the zoo would raise the barrier from 12.5 to 19 feet. So you see, the zoo and Harambe were screwed the moment someone spawned into his enclosure. And really, Harambe was dead the moment he chose free will. In fact, if that child would have died, Harambe certainly would have been past tensed, all the gorillas might have been packed out, and the zoo would have been sued beyond oblivion. The zoo would modify Gorilla World by raising the outer barrier and loading up on netting and fencing, but the real victims here were Harambe, the child, and gorillas as a whole. And as much as I want to dump on the mom, well, the internet's kind of done that already, but kids are walking kamikazes. Not excusing it, cause damn it, watch your crotch and the things that come out, but you don't think a kid will, till they do. And mama, I love you, I really do, but when I was about knee high, my mom turned away for a second at the park, and when she turned back, she saw me on the other side of a pond leaning in. And if both my parents didn't go Usain Bolt and catch me before I fell in, well, we know how that story ends.
Yeah.
I also almost got kidnapped. And I only say that now because my mother never lets me forget it. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Drink water, hug your mother.
Jesus.
Hold your kids, they're stupid. Rest in primate Harambe, and I'ma see y'all in the next one.
Yeah, killing him was definitely the right choice. I don't care what you say, I will always value a human life over the life of some animal, because a human life is far more valuable. Yeah, knowing all the circumstances really just makes all the people who are really pro-Harambe, anti-zoo look like absolute fucking morons. I'm just gonna assume the majority of people who heard of this are morons because they don't know all the facts. When this stuff actually happened, I definitely saw some comments about people being like, why didn't they just tranquilize him? Knowing what I know now makes them look like idiots. I wonder how these people would act if that kid had actually died. There's definitely people who would still be like, well, you didn't have to kill him if the kid was already dead. There would definitely be some people like that. They would be a very small minority, but they exist. But yeah, I think I said everything I wanted to during the video, so I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you're interested, why not watch this video right here? And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next video.